SpaceX just bet $60 billion on a company most people have never heard of. That's more than it spent building every single rocket in its history, combined. Not on Mars, not on Starlink, on a startup that wants to change the way every piece of software on Earth gets written. And if they're right, the entire tech industry is about to be flipped upside down. This is the deal nobody saw coming, and by the end, you'll understand exactly why it changes everything. June 12th, 2026. SpaceX finally does what everyone's been waiting for. It goes public on the NASDAQ, shares priced at $135. Within hours, they're surging past 200 in pre-market trading. The headlines write themselves. The biggest rocket company on the planet is now one of the most valuable public companies in America. Everyone assumes the fireworks are over. They have no idea what's coming 4 days later. June 16th. Just 4 days after going public, SpaceX drops a bomb. $60 billion, all stock, for a company called Anysphere. It's the fastest mega acquisition trigger after an IPO in history. Every single share of Anysphere converts into SpaceX Class A common stock. $60 billion, not for a rocket company, not for a satellite network, but for a software tool most of America has never heard of. To understand why SpaceX would make this bet, you need to know what Cursor actually does. Cursor is an AI-powered coding tool, and it's not some garage stage experiment. Millions of professional developers use it every single day. It generates $2.6 billion in annual business revenue. That's not hype, that's a machine printing money. Companies across the world pay for Cursor because it does something no other tool does as well. It fundamentally changes how fast software gets built. And the way it does it, that's almost hard to believe. Here's what makes Cursor different. Instead of typing thousands of lines of code by hand, developers can now just talk. They describe what they want in plain English, and Cursor's Composer feature, paired with powerful AI models, writes real, production-ready code. This approach helped popularize what the industry calls vibe coding. You speak, the machine builds. It's rewriting the entire process of software creation. And the speed at which Cursor took over is where this story gets truly wild. Cursor's parent company, Anysphere, was founded in 2022. Just a small team with a big idea. By 2024, they'd caught the attention of OpenAI itself, going through its own startup accelerator program. A tiny company learning from the biggest name in AI. They were fast, they were hungry, and they were building something the industry desperately needed. But what happened next is the part that made Silicon Valley stop and stare. Because nobody, not the investors, not the competitors, saw it coming. June 2025, Cursor raises $900 million in a Series C. Massive. But they weren't done. By late 2025, another $2.3 billion pours in. The private valuation? $29 billion. Let that sink in. A company founded in 2022, fresh out of an accelerator in 2024, is now worth more than most Fortune 500 companies in roughly 2 years. It's one of the fastest value explosions in tech history, and every major investor on Earth noticed. Early 2026, the heavyweights show up. Andreessen Horowitz, Thrive Capital, NVIDIA, three of the most powerful names in venture capital in Silicon, line up a $2 billion funding round, one that would value Cursor at $50 billion. The biggest VCs and the biggest chipmaker on the planet fighting over a single coding tool. That's how hot this company was. But here's the thing. While these giants were setting up their deal, someone had already made a move they never saw coming. April 2026. While A16Z and NVIDIA are still finalizing paperwork, SpaceX quietly locks in an option, Acquire Cursor outright for $60 billion, or pay roughly $10 billion for a partnership. $60 billion, a 20% premium over what those VCs were offering. The Andreessen round? Dead before the ink dried. SpaceX didn't just outbid the competition, they made the competition irrelevant. One move in the entire bidding war was over. But $60 billion on a coding tool? That's not even the wild part. Now, $60 billion on a coding tool sounds wild enough. But to understand the real reason SpaceX pulled the trigger on this deal, you have to know what happened to xAI. Musk's own artificial intelligence company, the one he built to take on OpenAI and Google. Because what went down inside xAI, it's a story Elon Musk does not like telling. And it explains everything about why Cursor was worth every single dollar. xAI had 11 co-founders. 11 brilliant minds Musk personally recruited to build the future of artificial intelligence. By March 2026, every single one of them was gone. All 11, not a few, not most. Every last one walked out the door. And Musk didn't spin it. He didn't deflect. He said it publicly. xAI, quote, was not built right the first time around. When a man like Musk admits failure out loud, you know the damage was catastrophic. February 2026. SpaceX doesn't shut xAI down. It swallows it whole. A merger valued at $250 billion, the largest acquisition in history. xAI becomes SpaceX AI, folded directly under SpaceX's roof. See, Musk wasn't giving up on AI. He was burning the old structure to the ground and rebuilding from scratch. New brand, new leadership, new infrastructure. But he still needed one thing, a product millions of developers already used. And now you know exactly where this is going. But here's what nobody was supposed to know yet. For months before this deal was even announced, SpaceX AI and Cursor had been quietly training an AI model together on xAI's Colossus supercomputer in Memphis, Tennessee. This wasn't some exploratory pilot. This was a full-scale joint training operation on one of the most powerful computing clusters on Earth. The acquisition didn't come out of nowhere. It was the final move of a plan that had been running in the shadows for a long time. That model they've been training? It's expected to ship inside both Cursor and Grok build. SpaceX isn't just buying a company, it's building the engine and the car at the same time. But here's where this story takes its sharpest turn. Because the companies that made Cursor powerful in the first place, the ones whose technology turned it into a phenomenon, are now its direct enemies. And that betrayal? It changes everything. Cursor wasn't built in a vacuum. It was built on top of Anthropic's Claude and OpenAI's models. Anthropic's Claude Sonnet literally powered Cursor's Composer feature, the tool that helped popularize vibe coding, where developers just talk to an AI in plain English and watch it write software. That feature put Cursor on the map. And now, Cursor's new owner is a direct competitor to both Anthropic and OpenAI. Those supplier relationships are now, quote, complicated. That might be the understatement of the decade. Because make no mistake, this is a war now. Cursor versus Anthropic's Claude Code versus OpenAI's Codex. Three titans fighting over who gets to write the world's software. SpaceX didn't spend $60 billion for a product. It bought a seat at the table in the most consequential software race of the decade. Whoever wins this doesn't just dominate coding, they dominate how every piece of technology on Earth gets built. The stakes aren't big, they're existential. And the clues were there, all along. Before any deal was announced, xAI had already been renting data center capacity to Cursor. They'd already hired two of Cursor's senior engineering leaders. The talent was flowing, the infrastructure was merging. This wasn't a courtship, It was a slow-motion merger disguised as a collaboration. By the time the $60 billion headline dropped, the two companies were already halfway fused. The paperwork just made it official. So SpaceX is spending $60 billion to win the AI coding race. That's a staggering number by any measure. But the number SpaceX told its own IPO investors about the size of this market, it makes $60 billion look like pocket change, like a rounding error. And when you see what SpaceX actually believes it's chasing, you'll understand why Elon Musk pulled the trigger this fast. SpaceX showed its hand. During the IPO roadshow, the company pitched investors on a total addressable market of $28 trillion. $26 trillion of that centered entirely on AI, $2.4 trillion in AI infrastructure, $22.7 trillion in enterprise applications, rockets, satellites, Starlink. All of it combined was the smaller slice of the pie. In SpaceX's own vision to its own investors, space is the sideshow, AI is the main event, and they were about to prove they meant it. And the deal structure tells you everything about SpaceX's confidence. Every single Cursor share converts into SpaceX Class A common stock, an all-stock transaction worth $60 billion. If SpaceX walks away, they owe a $10 billion breakup fee. If antitrust regulators block it, there's a separate $4 billion penalty. That's $14 billion in exit costs. SpaceX didn't build this deal to negotiate. They built it to close. But the price tag itself? That's where the story gets wild. At $60 billion, SpaceX is paying more than double Cursor's $29 billion private valuation from earlier this year. It's a $10 billion premium over what that preempted round from Andreessen Horowitz, Thrive, and NVIDIA would have priced it at $50 billion. One analyst put it in terms that should stop you cold. This single acquisition exceeds SpaceX's total historical spending on every launch vehicle it has ever built. Every Falcon, every Starship, every test flight, all of it, less than one AI coding company. Think about what that means. The company that built reusable rockets, the company literally sending humans toward Mars, looked at its future and decided the bigger frontier isn't out there. It's in here, in the software, in the code. If SpaceX is right about that $28 trillion market they pitched to investors, then $60 billion isn't a gamble. It's an opening bid. But here's the thing, the deal isn't done yet. Cursor still has to deliver. That jointly trained model built on the Colossus supercomputer, it hasn't shipped yet. The relationships with Anthropic and OpenAI, the companies whose models made Cursor what it is, are now complicated at best, hostile at worst. And then there's the regulators. Antitrust scrutiny is coming, and SpaceX literally built a $4 billion clause for that scenario. The deal is expected to close Q3 2026. Announced is not done. A lot can still go wrong. Now zoom all the way out. In 4 days, SpaceX went public on the NASDAQ, watched its stock surge from $135 past $200, and committed $60 billion to an AI coding startup founded in 2022. This is a company telling the entire world that the next trillion-dollar frontier isn't space. It's the code that builds everything on Earth. And if you think this story is over, you haven't been paying attention. Subscribe, because what happens next is going to be even bigger. Here's where we stand. The AI coding arms race just got its first $60 billion player, and the game changed overnight. Anthropic powers the very tool SpaceX just bought. OpenAI trained the people who built it. Both of them now have to decide, do they compete harder, or do they cut Cursor off and risk losing millions of developers? That decision, made in boardrooms right now, could reshape how every piece of software on Earth gets written. Subscribe, because when that next move drops, you'll want to be here.